New York never sleeps. The streets pulse with sirens, the glow of neon, and the restless energy of millions of lives intersecting. On that particular winter evening, snow fell in fine, icy needles, caught in the wind that curled between the skyscrapers of Manhattan. The city seemed alive, buzzing, impatient. Yet no one could have predicted that within minutes, chaos and flames would consume one of its luxurious towers. Inside a small delivery van parked 2 blocks away, Jana Taylor adjusted her helmet, pulling the straps tight under her chin. Her shift had already stretched beyond 10 hours. Food delivery in New York was not glamorous, but it paid just enough to cover rent for the cramped apartment she shared with her mother, who lay ill in bed waiting for medicines that always cost more than Jana could afford. The screen of her phone blinked with a new order delivered to 78th floor, Lexington Heights Tower. She sighed. Another tall building. Another long wait for the elevators. Her legs were sore from pedaling across icy streets. But she pushed forward. She didn't know that destiny was waiting inside those very walls. As Jana approached the tower, the night erupted with confusion. A scream. A shout. Then the unmistakable wail of fire alarms blared through the winter air. Fire, fire. Someone cried as smoke bled from the glass doors of the lobby. Jana froze for a second, her breath caught in her throat. Flames flickered behind the marble walls, licking upward with frightening speed. Security guards shouted for people to evacuate. Dozens of tenants spilled out onto the street, their eyes-wide coats pulled tight against the icy wind. And then she heard it, someone shouting from inside. "There's a man trapped. He's still inside up there." Another voice. "The stairwell is blocked. He can't get out." Jana's grip tightened around her insulated food bag. She looked up. The building stretched endlessly into the night sky, each window a mirror of orange flames and dark smoke. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to leave, to protect her own fragile life. But deep inside, something else rose stronger, that stubborn spark that had kept her fighting against poverty, against fear, against despair all her life. Without thinking twice, she dropped the food bag onto the sidewalk. "I'll go," she whispered almost to herself. Before anyone could stop her, Jana slipped through the smoke-filled entrance and disappeared inside. On the 32nd floor, Henry Smith was not used to feeling powerless. He was the heir and CEO of Smith Global Holdings, a man whose name filled headlines in both Wall Street journals and glossy magazines. To the world, he was the untouchable billionaire, the white man who turned empires into playgrounds. But right now, his lungs burned, and every breath scraped like knives. The conference room around him was ablaze. A fallen beam blocked the door, trapping him in a cage of heat and smoke. He had tried to move it, but his muscles trembled. His vision blurred. The sharp, suffocating air reminded him brutally that money, status, and power meant nothing in front of fire. Was this how it would end? Alone, gasping, surrounded by flames that cared nothing for his name. He closed his eyes, perhaps for the last time. The sound of breaking glass jolted him. Henry forced his eyes open, coughing. Through the haze, a figure appeared, slender but strong, her face half hidden by a helmet. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her voice was firm, urgent. Henry's brain struggled to register what was happening. Who was this woman? Why would anyone come into the fire? "Hold on," she shouted. She threw herself against the fallen beam with surprising strength, pushing, shoving until the path cleared just enough. She staggered, coughing, but didn't stop. "Come on. Get up." Henry stumbled forward, his legs barely obeying. She wrapped his arm around her shoulders, half dragging him toward the stairwell. Flames roared around them like beasts hungry for prey. Every step was a war against heat and smoke. Why are you here?" Henry managed to whisper. Jana didn't answer. She only tightened her grip. Down 32 flights of stairs, through corridors collapsing in fire, past ceilings that groaned, threatening to bury them alive. At last, with one final push, they burst through the lobby doors and into the icy night air. Sirens howled, firefighters rushed forward, and cameras flashed as onlookers gasped. Henry collapsed onto the frozen sidewalk, sucking in oxygen like it was treasure. Jana knelt beside him, her chest heaving, eyes wide with exhaustion. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause. Their gazes locked, his pale blue eyes, searching her deep brown eyes burning with unshakable courage. And something unspoken passed between them. Paramedics swarmed around Henry, lifting him onto a stretcher. Security tried to pull Jana aside, but she shook her head, refusing attention. She wasn't the type to bask in glory. She was already late for her delivery, and her employer would deduct money if the order weren't completed. She turned away, vanishing into the crowd before Henry could even ask her name. But Henry Smith never forgot a face, and he swore that he would find her again. Hours later, as he lay in a hospital bed, his assistant hovered nervously. "Mr. Smith, you need rest." Henry's voice was hoarse, but his eyes burned with determination. "No, I need her. Her, sir. The woman who saved me. Find her, whatever it takes." And so, while the city moved on, Henry's empire shifted its gaze onto one mysterious woman, the delivery girl who ran into fire when everyone else ran away. Back in her small apartment in Harlem, Jana pushed open the door quietly. The familiar smell of antiseptics and faint jasmine tea greeted her. Her mother lay weakly in bed, breathing shallow, but smiling faintly when she saw her daughter. "You're late, Jana," her mother whispered. "Work ran long," Jana replied, brushing snow from her jacket. She didn't mention the fire. She didn't say how close she had come to never returning. Because for Jana, heroism was not about recognition. It was about survival, about doing what her heart told her, even when the world demanded otherwise. Yet deep inside, a question lingered. Who was that man she had saved? Why did his presence feel so strangely significant? In the grand scheme of New York City, two lives had brushed against each other, a billionaire and a delivery girl. Their worlds could not be further apart yet. Fate's flames had bound them together. This was only the beginning. Snow had not yet melted from the sidewalks of Manhattan when Henry Smith returned to his office at Smith Global Holdings. The world expected him to recover slowly, to take time away after nearly perishing in the flames. But Henry was not a man who lingered in weakness. He returned as soon as his lungs allowed him to breathe without pain, his face pale, but his eyes sharper than ever. Henry had lived in a fortress of glass and steel for years, guarded by walls of power and money. People sought him for contracts, investments, and influence. Everyone wanted something, but no one had ever stepped into fire to pull him out. Except her. That nameless woman with dark skin and fierce eyes that refused to waver even as flames closed around them. Henry could not forget. In his private office, overlooking the Hudson River, Henry spread photographs across his desk. Security footage from street cameras blurred images from bystanders' phones, and his team hastily collected eyewitness reports. Find her, he had ordered. And they obeyed, because when Henry Smith gave an order, the world tilted to accommodate. Yet the city was vast. Millions moved through it every day, faces lost in a crowd. The woman had disappeared like smoke after saving him. Henry leaned back in his chair, fingers pressed to his temples. He could still feel the press of her shoulder beneath his arm, the steady determination in her stride, as she half carried him down those suffocating stairs. His empire of billions suddenly seemed irrelevant compared to the mystery of one unknown savior. For perhaps the first time in his life, Henry was haunted not by numbers or power games, but by the simple question, who is she? Across the city, Jana Taylor was folding delivery uniforms in her tiny apartment. The heater clicked softly in the corner, doing little to fight the chill that seeped through old brick walls. Her mother's voice floated weakly from the bedroom. "Jana, did you eat? I will, Mama." "Don't worry," Jana answered. Though her stomach had been empty since morning, she had not told her mother about the fire. Why burden her with fear when every day was already a battle against illness? Besides, what good would it do to say, "Mama, I carried a stranger out of a burning tower"? The world would not change. The rent would not vanish. The hospital bills would not disappear. So Jana chose silence. Yet when she closed her eyes at night, the face of the man she saved would return ashen proud even in weakness, his blue eyes piercing through the smoke. She told herself he was just another stranger, but deep down she knew he was not. Days turned into weeks. Snow hardened into ice along Fifth Avenue. Henry's search spread further. He called in favors from the NYPD commissioner, the investigators, and even the analysts, desperate for an exclusive. "Sir," one of his assistants said nervously that hundreds of delivery workers were in the area that night. "It could take months." "Then search for months," Henry replied coldly. "I don't care how long it takes." To his board of directors, it looked like a distraction. To Henry, it was clarity. The woman had risked everything for him. In his world, debts were never left unpaid. It happened unexpectedly, as fate always does. Jana was cycling through Times Square, weaving between yellow cabs, her food delivery bag strapped to her back. The lights were blinding advertisements larger than life, the air filled with music and laughter. She stopped at a red light, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. A sleek black limousine rolled beside her, its tinted window sliding down. For a moment, Jana felt eyes on her, intense searching. Then a voice, deep familiar. "You," her heart jolted. Slowly, she turned her head. Inside the limousine sat Henry Smith, wrapped in a dark tailored coat, his gaze locked onto her with the same fierceness she remembered from the fire. The light turned green. Cars honked. But Jana's bicycle wobbled as she froze under his stare. The door opened. Henry stepped out, ignoring the chaos of honking drivers, ignoring the cold wind that whipped his hair. "It's you," he said again, softer this time, as though confirming that she was real. Jana's pulse thundered. She wanted to pedal away, to vanish into the anonymity of the city. But his presence rooted her in place. People on the street began whispering. Some recognized the billionaire immediately. Phones came up, flashes sparked. Jana panicked. The last thing she needed was attention. She lived in shadows, working silently to care for her mother. Fame was not safety, it was danger. "I don't know you," she said, quickly adjusting her helmet, trying to push the pedals. But Henry's hand caught the handlebars. His grip was firm, unyielding, but not cruel. "You saved my life," he said. "I will not forget that. Ever. I didn't do it for you." She snapped, her voice trembling. I couldn't watch someone die." Henry's lips curved into something almost like a smile, though sadness lingered in his eyes. "Then allow me to repay you. I don't need your money. I didn't say money." His gaze softened. "I said repay." The crowd around them thickened, murmurs rising. Jana's panic grew. She yanked the handlebars free, pedaled hard, and disappeared into the city's current before Henry's guards could block her path. Henry returned to his penthouse overlooking Central Park, but sleep eluded him. He repeatedly replayed the moment, her voice's stubborn refusal and the fire in her eyes. No one had ever dared to push him away like that. Women in his world flocked to him for his name, his wealth. But Jana, She wanted none of it. That only made him want her more. Back in Harlem, Jana pressed cold cloths against her mother's forehead. Medical bills piled on the table like small mountains. Her delivery wages barely covered the interest. She tried to shake Henry's image from her mind, but it clung stubbornly. The way he had looked at her, like she was not invisible, like she mattered. Yet Jana reminded herself, he belongs to another world, a world where women wore diamonds, not helmets, where love was politics, not survival, and she had no place in it. The next day, as she stepped out of the clinic where her mother received treatment, a black car pulled up again. This time, Henry did not emerge. Instead, a tall man in a suit approached. Miss Taylor. Jana froze. "How do you know my name?" "Mr. Smith would like a word. Please." Fear and curiosity battled inside her. Against her better judgment, she slid into the back seat. Henry sat there calmly, his coat draped neatly, his presence filling the space like gravity. "I apologize for yesterday." He said it smoothly. "The street was not the place. But I need you to hear me out." Jana folded her arms. "I don't want charity." "It's not charity," Henry replied. His eyes locked on hers. "It's employment." She blinked. "Employment?" "Yes. Be my personal security." Jana stared at him as though he had lost his mind. "Security? Me? I'm a delivery driver, Mr. Smith. Not a bodyguard." Henry's smile was faint, unreadable. "You carried me down 32 flights of burning stairs. My professional guards couldn't even reach me. If that isn't security, I don't know what is." Her heart raced, not from flattery, but from fear. She couldn't be near him. His world was dangerous, dazzling, tempting. "I can't," she whispered. "You can." His voice lowered, intimate, commanding. "You will, because you need what I offer. Not money, though you'll be paid well, but influence, access to the best doctors in the country for your mother, protection from those who prey on you." Her breath caught. How did he know? Henry leaned closer, his words gentle but firm. "I don't make promises lightly. Work for me and your mother will have everything she needs. Say no, and you walk away tonight, and we never see each other again." Silence filled the car, heavy as snowfall. Jana's chest tightened. This was temptation wrapped in silk and steel. Finally, she whispered, "1 month, no more." Henry's eyes gleamed with quiet triumph. 1 month is enough. Within hours, Jana stood in the gleaming lobby of Smith Global's headquarters. The marble floors shone like mirrors, the air scented with money and power. She felt small, her delivery jacket shabby against the sea of tailored suits. An assistant handed her a folder. Pages of contracts, clauses and signatures, numbers that made her dizzy. "Sign," Henry said, standing beside her. Her hand trembled as she pressed the pen to paper. With one signature, her life shifted from anonymity into the storm of wealth, danger, and secrets. As Henry escorted her through the building that night, their steps echoed in silence. "Why me?" Jana finally asked. "You could hire anyone, professionals, soldiers. Why me?" Henry paused, turning to face her. His eyes were unreadable, a storm contained behind ice-blue calm. "Because," he said quietly, "you don't see me as a billionaire. You see me as a man." The words lodged in Jana's chest were impossible to ignore. And though she told herself this was only for a month, her heart whispered that destiny had only begun to unfold. Morning light spilled across the skyline of Manhattan, gilding the glass towers in shades of gold. For most, it was a new day. For Jana Taylor, it was the beginning of something entirely foreign, something she had promised herself would survive for only a month. She stood at the foot of Smith Global Holdings, her reflection wavering in the massive glass facade. The building rose like a monument to power dominating Park Avenue. Men and women in sleek suits rushed through the revolving doors, with practiced confidence their conversations about mergers and markets swirling like a foreign language. Jana adjusted the plain jacket she wore. Though Henry's assistant had sent her a tailored black suit, she had refused to wear it. She would not disguise herself as someone she wasn't. Beneath the winter air, her breath clouded in soft wisps as she whispered, "You're here for your mother. 1 month, Jana. 1 month, and then you walk away." The lobby greeted her with polished marble floors and chandeliers that scattered light like captured stars. Everyone who passed glanced at her, some in curiosity, some in disapproval. She knew what they saw: a young black woman, posture defiant eyes, too sharp, dressed modestly for a place built on billions. "Miss Taylor." The voice was calm, commanding. She turned. Henry Smith stood before her, tall in his dark suit, his blue eyes cool and assessing. It was as if he owned the building and its air. "You're late," he said. Jana frowned for 2 minutes. "In my world," Henry replied smoothly. 2 minutes can cost millions." She wanted to retort, but his gaze pinned her in place. It wasn't arrogance alone. It was expectation, as though he demanded the world bend to his rhythm. "Follow me." The elevator ride stretched endlessly, its mirrored walls reflecting her unease. Henry stood beside her, scrolling through messages on his phone, filling the confined space. When the doors slid open, she stepped into a realm she had only ever glimpsed in films. An office floor overlooking the entire city, lined with glass walls, every detail sharp with wealth and precision. Assistants moved swiftly, their heels clicking like clockwork. Henry said, "This will be your station," pointing to a small corner near his office. "You don't leave unless I do." 24 hours means precisely that. Jana bristled. "I'm not a machine." For the first time, Henry looked up from his phone. His lips curved into something faintly resembling a smile. "Good. Machines don't run into fires. Machines don't carry men down 30 flights of stairs. That's why you're here." His words silenced her protests, though irritation simmered beneath her ribs. By midday, whispers spread across the floor. Executives and interns alike stole glances at her, some hiding smirks behind their hands. "Did you hear?" one woman whispered. "That girl is supposed to be his bodyguard." "A delivery girl turned security absurd," another muttered. Jana's hands curled into fists. She had endured stares all her life on the streets and stores, wherever people thought she didn't belong. But here, under the weight of chandeliers and wealth, the scrutiny felt sharper, like glass, cutting into her skin. One of them deliberately stepped in her way when she passed a group near the conference room. A tall man with silver hair, his suit impeccably cut. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice low but firm. He smirked. "I didn't realize Mr. Smith had lowered his standards this far." "Tell me how long before you find your way into his bed." Heat flared in her chest. Her palm itched to strike him. But before she could speak, Henry's voice sliced through the room. "Daniel." The man stiffened. Henry stood nearby, his expression unreadable, but his eyes cold enough to freeze steel. "You work for me. Not your pride, not your imagination. Clear your desk before the hour ends if you can't remember that." The silence was absolute. Daniel paled, muttered something, and moved aside. Jana exhaled slowly, refusing to meet Henry's eyes. Gratitude warred with anger. She didn't need saving, not here. Not like this. Yet a part of her whispered that it wasn't protection, it was ownership. The day stretched on with a rhythm foreign to Jana. Meetings blurred into one another, investors arriving and leaving like tides. Henry moved through it all with a predator's grace, calculating, decisive, untouchable. When evening fell, she followed him into the limousine, waiting at the curb. The city outside pulsed with neon, but inside silence reigned. "Why me?" she asked suddenly, her voice breaking the quiet. "Out of all the professionals you could hire, why me?" Henry's gaze slid toward her, sharp yet thoughtful. "Because you don't owe me loyalty." She frowned. "That makes no sense." "It makes every kind of sense," he replied. "Everyone around me wants something: power, money, influence. But you," his voice dropped lower, "you ran into fire for nothing. That makes you dangerous and trustworthy." Her breath caught, though she turned her face to the window. Dangerous, trustworthy. She wasn't sure if he admired her or warned her. Their next destination was not a meeting, but Henry's penthouse. When the elevator doors opened, Jana felt like she had entered another universe. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed Central Park below, while crystal decanters gleamed on polished shelves. A piano stood near the balcony, silent, yet commanding. "This is where you'll stay tonight," Henry said, matter-of-factly. She spun toward him. "Stay. I thought I was your bodyguard. Not your security is 24 hours, he interrupted calmly. "You think threats only come during daylight?" Jana bit her tongue, fury pressing against her lips, yet she understood. Wealth attracted enemies as much as it attracted luxury. She retreated to the guest room, but sleep was impossible. The city lights painted restless patterns across the walls. She thought of her mother, of the bills still waiting, and then, against her will, she thought of Henry, his cold blue eyes, his unshakable certainty. Near midnight, she wandered into the living room, drawn by the faint sound of piano keys. Henry sat there, his jacket discarded, his fingers coaxing a melody soft and haunting from the instrument. It was a sound of loneliness, something fragile, hidden beneath layers of control. Jana froze, watching him. For the first time, he looked less like a billionaire carved from marble, and more like a man who had built walls so high he sometimes couldn't breathe within them. The music stopped. He turned, catching her gaze. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Neither can I," he admitted. The air between them shifted for a moment, less sharp, more human. But then his walls rose again. "Go back to bed, Miss Taylor. Tomorrow will be more complicated than today." She obeyed, though her heart echoed his melody long into the night. The days that followed blurred with intensity. Jana shadowed Henry everywhere. Boardrooms, banquets, late-night negotiations in skyscrapers, where the city looked like a constellation beneath their feet. The more time she spent near him, the more she noticed things others ignored. The way his jaw tightened before making a ruthless decision. The rare flicker of weariness in his eyes when he thought no one watched. The silence he carried like a second skin. Henry noticed how she moved without fear into rooms filled with men who doubted her and spoke little but observed everything, and how she carried herself as if no amount of wealth could bend her. Their clashes were inevitable. He demanded obedience. She demanded independence. He issued commands. She questioned them. But beneath every argument lay something unspoken, a pull neither could name, yet both could feel. As Henry prepared for a gala at the Metropolitan Museum one evening, Jana overheard two staff members whispering near the service hall. "They say someone's planning to make a move tonight, a rival. Maybe worse." Her chest tightened. She knew danger when it stalked close life on the streets, had taught her to listen to whispers as if they were gospel. She blocked his path when Henry appeared, immaculate in his black tuxedo. "Don't go tonight," she said firmly. His brow arched. "You forget your place, Miss Taylor. I forget nothing. I hear things you don't, and I trust my instincts." They stared at each other for a long moment, two wills colliding in silence. Then Henry's lips slowly curved, not in mockery, but in something almost like respect. "Then you'll come with me," he said. And though her stomach knotted with dread, Jana knew she had already stepped too deep into his world to turn back. In the glittering halls of the Met, surrounded by chandeliers and diamonds, the delivery girl turned bodyguard walked at the side of the billionaire. Whispers followed judgment, lingered, danger lurked unseen. But within her chest, a new truth stirred. A truth she could not yet name, but that destiny had already written. And in Henry's silent glance, she saw it too. A storm gathering, inevitable and unstoppable. The night unfolded in glitter and glass. The Metropolitan Museum of Art towered proudly against the winter sky, its marble steps alive with flashing cameras and journalists calling out names. Limos slid to a stop, one after another, releasing men and women draped in couture diamonds, sparkling like constellations around their throats. Inside, chandeliers spilled light across gilded halls, their glow caressing canvases centuries old. The gala was not merely an event, but a performance of power, a stage where New York's elite measured each other in silk jewels and whispers. For Jana Taylor, it was suffocating. She stepped behind Henry Smith, dressed in a simple black gown his assistant had chosen for her. The satin hugged her form with a grace she didn't recognize as her own, her hair pinned into an elegant knot. The gown was supposed to help her blend into the crowd, but it only made the contrast sharper. She was a storm dropped into a ballroom of glass. Eyes followed them, some curious, some appraising, some dripping disdain. She felt their stares like icy fingers on her back. Henry, however, walked with the same controlled grace he carried into boardrooms, untouched by the weight of judgment. His hand rested lightly at his cuff, his eyes cool, his expression unreadable. "This place isn't safe," Jana murmured as they ascended the steps, his lips tilted faintly. "It's the Met, Miss Taylor. The most dangerous thing here is gossip." But she knew better. Instinct honed from years of navigating streets where danger hid in shadows whispered otherwise. The air vibrated with something unsteady, something sharp waiting beneath the glamour. The evening unfolded with the rhythm of champagne flutes and hushed laughter. Orchestras played softly from the balcony, their violins weaving a net of elegance around the room. Servers glided with silver trays carrying glasses that caught the light like liquid fire. Henry moved easily among the guests, exchanging brief handshakes, his words sharp and economical. He was no stranger to scrutiny. Every motion seemed calculated, deliberate. Jana stayed close, her gaze scanning constantly doors, exits, unfamiliar faces, hands lingering too long near pockets. And then she noticed him. Near the corner of the hall, a man in a waiter's uniform was half hidden behind a sculpture. He carried no tray. His posture was wrong, too rigid, too focused. His eyes tracked Henry with a predator's patience. Jana's chest tightened. She stepped closer to Henry, her voice low. 11 o'clock. "Don't look." Henry didn't shift his gaze, but his tone sharpened. "You're certain?" "Yes." "Then handle it." Her pulse quickened at his calm. He trusted her without hesitation, without proof. That trust was heavier than any weight she'd carried. Jana slipped away, moving through the crowd like a shadow. She circled toward the corner, her heels silent against marble floors. Guests laughed oblivious as she brushed past gowns worth more than her entire apartment building. The man shifted, realizing too late he had been seen. Their eyes locked for a brief electric second, his widening in surprise, hers narrowing with determination. Then he ran. Jana darted after him, weaving through startled guests, ignoring their gasps. The chase cut through back corridors far from the glitter of the main hall. The man lunged toward a service exit. She grabbed his arm, twisting hard, slamming him against the wall. "Who sent you?" she hissed. He struggled, his voice a growl. "You don't know what you're protecting." Her grip tightened. Please, answer me. But before she could press further, footsteps echoed down the corridor. More men dressed as staff, but their movements were too sharp and practiced. Outnumbered. Her instinct screamed, "Not here, not now." She shoved the first man hard against the wall, buying precious seconds, and sprinted back toward the main hall. By the time Jana returned, the gala was in full shimmer. Henry stood near the central staircase, surrounded by dignitaries, his expression composed. Yet when his gaze caught hers across the room, something flickered, recognition of the storm in her eyes. He excused himself, smoothly crossing to meet her with deliberate steps. "Well," he asked softly. "They're here," she whispered. "Not one, several." Henry's jaw tightened, but instead of panic, his eyes glinted with cold amusement. Then the evening just became interesting. Before she could reply, a glass shattered. A scream followed. The first man she had cornered now stood atop the staircase, his jacket pulled back to reveal a weapon glinting beneath the chandeliers. Chaos erupted. Guests shrieked, diamonds flashing as they scrambled. The orchestra silenced mid-note. Jana stepped forward instinctively, her body placing itself between Henry and danger. "Stay behind me," she ordered. But Henry's voice was quiet steel. "I don't stay behind anyone." The armed man shouted something lost beneath the panic, but his intent was clear. He raised the weapon, aiming for Henry. Jana didn't think. She lunged, pushing Henry aside, the shot cracking like thunder. The sound echoed off marble, deafening. Gasps filled the room. She rolled, catching the man's arm as he tried to reload. A swift strike sent the weapon clattering across the floor. They grappled on the steps, his weight heavy, his movements desperate. Jana's training was no more than instinct and survival, but survival had always been her sharpest weapon. She twisted, slammed her knee into his ribs, and threw him down onto the marble floor. Silence fell for a breathless second. Then security swarmed, tackling the man, dragging him away. Henry stood above his coat, disheveled, his blue eyes locked solely on her. "You," he whispered, his voice low, but carrying. "You just saved me again." The gala dissolved into chaos. Guests evacuated, reporters already circling like vultures, police flooding the scene. But Henry moved through it all with one focus: Jana. Later in the limousine, the city's lights flashed past, and silence stretched thick between them. Jana sat with her hands trembling, faintly hidden in her lap. The shot still rang in her ears, the echo of marble beneath her knees, the heat of adrenaline refusing to fade. Henry studied her, not with the detached calculation he offered the world, but with something more profound, heavier. "You could have died," he said finally. "So could you." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something only she could hear. "Don't do that again." Her eyes flashed. "It's my job." "No," he said softly, fiercely. "It's your life, and I won't let you throw it away." For a moment, the world outside vanished. Their gazes locked, something unspoken crackling between them. Fear, defiance, and a pull neither could deny. Later that night, in the quiet of the penthouse, Jana stood by the window overlooking Central Park. The city glittered endlessly, but she felt only the weight of what had happened. Her reflection in the glass looked like a stranger dressed in elegance, tangled in danger, her heart pounding with emotions she refused to name. Behind her, she heard Henry's footsteps. "You should rest," he said quietly. She turned. His jacket was gone. His shirt sleeves rolled, his tie undone. For once, the perfect billionaire looked human, tired, yet unyielding. "I don't belong here," she murmured. Henry stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Neither do I." "Not really." She frowned. "You're Henry Smith. This world is yours." His lips curved, not in humor, but in bitterness. "This world owns me, Jana. But you walk into fire, into bullets without fear. You belong more than anyone here." Her breath caught her heart, betraying her with a shiver. But before words could form, he turned away, leaving her with silence and a truth she wasn't ready to face. That night, neither of them slept. He sat at the piano, coaxing haunting melodies from ivory keys. She stood by the window, staring at a city that suddenly felt smaller, more dangerous, yet strangely brighter. For in the chaos of the gala, beneath the danger and the whispers, something had shifted irrevocably between them. The billionaire and the bodyguard, the fire and the storm. Two lives no longer running parallel, but colliding, entwining, destined to burn brighter or destroy each other. The snow had thickened overnight, blanketing Manhattan in silence. Yet within the penthouse of Henry Smith, silence felt like a living thing, tense, waiting, sharp as glass. Henry stood before the wall of windows, his figure etched against the city lights. His phone buzzed with relentless updates, messages from his legal team, from security, from the board of Smith Global Holdings. But he ignored them all. His mind replayed the sound of the gunshot, the sight of Jana leaping in front of him without hesitation. Behind him, Jana sat curled in an armchair, her gown from the gala replaced by a simple sweater borrowed from his staff. Her posture was rigid, though her hands still trembled faintly. She tried to hide it, but Henry noticed everything. "Who were they?" she asked, finally, her voice low. Henry turned his eyes like ice. Not amateurs. Too precise. Too willing to risk exposure. That means only one thing. This wasn't about money. It was personal. Jana's jaw tightened. Enemies. A bitter smile touched his lips. In my world, enemies are as common as champagne. Jana lowered her gaze. Images of the gala haunted her, the chaos, the screams, the bullets slicing through the air. She had thrown herself into danger without thought, but now, alone with her heartbeat echoing in her chest, fear crept in. Not fear for herself, but for the man she had protected. Henry approached, his footsteps measured. He crouched before her chair, close enough that she could see the faint shadows under his eyes. "You blame yourself," he said softly. She swallowed. "I should have ended it sooner. I saw him, and still. You saved me." Henry interrupted, his tone sharp with finality. "Not once, but twice. Without you, I wouldn't be standing here." The intensity in his gaze pinned her in place. The world outside vanished for a moment. The snow, the city, the shadows of enemies. All that remained was the weight of his voice and the heat of his presence. Her breath faltered, but she forced herself to look away. "You can't expect me to stand by next time." Henry's lips curved faintly. "That's exactly what terrifies me." The following morning, the penthouse was filled with quiet chaos. Henry's most trusted aides arrived, men and women dressed in gray suits, carrying laptops and folders brimming with intelligence. Jana lingered near the edge of the room, listening as Henry's voice cut through the noise. "Trace every face from the gala staff. Cross-reference with our internal security. Any ties to rival firms, competitors, or—" He stopped, noticing her watching. For a moment, his composure slipped, replaced by something unreadable. He said, "You're part of this now. Not as a question, but as a decree. Stay close. You'll see how deep this goes." Jana hesitated. His life was one of shadows, deals struck in whispers, battles fought without smoke or blood, but no less deadly. It wasn't her world, yet she was already inside it, whether she admitted it or not. "I don't want your enemies on my conscience," she said quietly. Henry's reply was just as soft. "And I don't want you on theirs." That evening, he took her to the company headquarters long after the city's traffic had thinned. The building loomed against the night like a fortress of glass and steel. Inside his private office, walls of books and maps surrounded a sleek desk where files lay open, names highlighted in red. "Smith Global isn't just money," Henry explained, pacing slowly. "It's control. Markets, real estate, politics. That makes me a target for anyone who wants more than they deserve. Jana studied him. He spoke with the calm of a man used to power, but beneath it she caught glimpses of something raw, weariness perhaps, or loneliness. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. Henry paused. "Regret requires time. Time is the one thing I don't own." She wanted to press further, but his phone rang, breaking the fragile moment. He answered sharply, his tone hardening. When the call ended, he turned to her, eyes storm dark. They found a name: Marcus Hale. "Who is he?" Henry's jaw clenched. A former associate. He wanted more than his share. "I cut him out. It seems he hasn't forgiven me." Days bled into nights as the investigation deepened. Jana shadowed Henry everywhere: meetings, late dinners with politicians, private negotiations that stretched into dawn. She watched as he wore his mask flawlessly, the ruthless tycoon, untouchable, unshaken. But she also noticed the cracks in how his hand lingered too long at his temple when migraines struck. How he sat at the piano in the dead of night playing melodies that whispered of loneliness. And she noticed how his gaze sought hers more often than it should, as if her presence anchored him against the storm. For Jana, the lines blurred. She told herself she was there to protect him, nothing more. But each time their hands brushed in the back seat of the limousine, each time his voice softened, when he said her name, something inside her trembled. One night, after another fruitless meeting with security, Jana found Henry on the penthouse balcony, the city sprawling beneath them, like a field of stars. "You don't have to fight this alone," she said quietly. Henry turned, his expression unreadable. "I've always fought alone." "Maybe that's the problem," she replied. Silence stretched. Snow fell lightly, dusting his shoulders. Then, almost imperceptibly, his voice dropped. "When I saw you fall against that man at the gala, when I thought you'd be—" He stopped, his throat tightening. "I realized something. Losing you terrified me more than losing everything I own." Jana froze, her breath catching in the winter air. The world tilted, the ground shifting beneath her. Henry stepped closer, his eyes piercing hers. "That's my truth. Please do what you want with it." Her heart pounded, torn between disbelief and the dangerous warmth in her chest. She had promised herself distance, yet the pull between them felt unstoppable. The fragile moment was shattered by the shrill ring of Henry's phone. He answered, his expression darkening as he listened. When he ended the call, his voice was tight. Marcus Hale sent a message. "He's coming for me through you." Jana's blood ran cold. "He's testing me," Henry continued, his fists clenched, "to see how far I'll go. He doesn't realize I'll burn everything before I let him touch you." Her chest ached at his words, both fierce and reckless. She wanted to protest, to remind him she wasn't fragile, but the intensity in his gaze silenced her. This wasn't just business anymore. She wasn't just a bodyguard. She was his vulnerability, and Marcus Hale knew it. That night, as the city slept beneath falling snow, Jana lay awake in the guest room of the penthouse. The words Henry had spoken replayed endlessly, tangled with the memory of his eyes, his voice, the truth he had confessed. Outside, the world sharpened with danger. Marcus Hale was no longer a shadow, but a storm gathering at the edges of their lives. And inside, something more dangerous stirred, a bond between billionaire and bodyguard, fragile yet unbreakable, born in fire and tested in blood. Jana closed her eyes, knowing the path ahead would demand everything she had. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she feared the enemy outside, or the feelings blooming inside her heart. The winter sun had not yet risen when the first message arrived. A plain envelope slipped under the heavy door of Henry Smith's penthouse, unmarked, unscented, almost forgettable, if not for the weight it carried. Jana found it first. She bent to pick it up, her instincts sparking before her eyes traced the letters. One sheet of cream paper folded once, bearing a single line in clean, deliberate ink. You cannot protect him forever. No signature, no demand. Only a truth delivered like a knife. Jana's chest tightened. She crossed the marble floor, quickly finding Henry in the kitchen, with a half-drunk cup of coffee and dark circles beneath his eyes. Henry. Her voice was sharper than she intended. She placed the letter in his hand. He read it once, his jaw hardening, then crumpled it without hesitation. Marcus. By midday, the city was already buzzing. Rumors churned on Wall Street about fractures within Smith Global, a board losing faith, shadows moving behind Henry's empire. But the true fracture was quieter, hidden in the hushed corners of meetings and the restless silence of his penthouse. Why would he warn us? Jana asked as she walked beside Henry into his office. If Marcus wanted you destroyed, he wouldn't announce it. Henry's lips curved bitterly. That's the point. He doesn't just want me gone. He wants me watching, waiting. Fear is his favorite weapon. Jana studied him. He looked the same as always. Perfectly tailored suit tie knotted with precision, expression carved from stone. But beneath it, she sensed the unease like a storm thrumming under glass. She tightened her fists, then let him come. Henry glanced at her, something flickering in his eyes. Not amusement, not dismissal. Something warmer, heavier. You say that as if you're mine to command. Her voice softened. I chose this. And though she meant the job, her chest betrayed her with a truth deeper than duty. It happened that night. Henry had agreed to a discreet dinner at a private club on Fifth Avenue, an old-world sanctuary with dark wood panels, red leather chairs, and the smell of cigars, lingering like memory. Investors whispered in corners. Servers moved like shadows. Jana hated it immediately. Too confined. Too many blind spots. Henry was halfway through a conversation with a senior partner when the doors opened. Silence followed, spreading like ripples. The man who entered wore no mask of subtlety. Marcus Hale carried his presence like a weapon. Broad-shouldered, sharp-featured, his suit immaculate, but his smile cruel. His eyes gray-cold, calculating, locked directly on Henry. Henry. Marcus drawled, his voice smooth as poison silk. It's been too long. Jana's hand went instinctively to her side, though she carried no weapon here. Her body shifted subtly, blocking Henry's from Marcus's line. Henry leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Marcus. I wondered when the rat would crawl out of its hole. A murmur swept through the room. Investors exchanged glances, sensing the undercurrent, but too wary to intervene. Marcus's smile widened. Still sharp with words, I see. But words won't protect you forever. Henry rose, his height meeting Marcus's with equal force. The tension between them was palpable, electric, pulling every gaze in the room. What do you want? Henry asked. Marcus chuckled, straight to the point. That's always been your charm. I want what you stole, the projects, the leverage, the empire you built on my back. You were reckless, Henry said evenly. You gambled with lives, with futures. I cut you out to save the company. Marcus leaned closer. His voice low, meant only for Henry and Jana. And for that, I'll take everything from you, piece by piece, including her. His gaze slid deliberately to Jana, lingering with venomous intent. Jana's spine stiffened, her eyes narrowing. Try it. Marcus tilted his head, a smirk twisting into cruelty. Fiery. No wonder you keep her close. But fire burns out Henry. And when it does, I'll watch the ashes fall. Henry's voice dropped, ice threading each syllable. If you touch her, Marcus, there won't be enough of you left for the police to identify. For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Then Marcus laughed, a sound rich with mockery, devoid of warmth. "This will be fun," he said, turning on his heel. He didn't need to stay longer. The message had been delivered. The ride back to the penthouse was steeped in silence. The city passed in blurs of neon and snow, but neither spoke. Only when the elevator doors closed behind them did Jana finally break it. "You can't let him bait you," she said quietly. Henry loosened his tie, his movements sharp, restless. "He already has. That's what he wants." He turned, then his eyes blazing with something raw. "He threatened you." Her breath caught at the fierceness in his tone. He wasn't the billionaire, the strategist, the untouchable man the world saw. He was simply a man, furious, protective, vulnerable. Jana stepped closer, her voice steady. "I've faced worse. I'm not afraid of him." Henry searched her face, as if weighing the truth of her words against the storm in his chest. Slowly his hand lifted, hovering near her cheek, but not quite touching. "You should be," he whispered, "because I am." That night, neither retreated to their separate rooms. The adrenaline, the danger, the confession between the lines held them captive. Henry poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handing one to Jana. She accepted it, their fingers brushing briefly an electric spark that lingered longer than it should. "Marcus won't stop," Henry murmured, staring into the amber liquid. "He'll come at me from every angle. Business, reputation, the people closest to me." "And you think that's me?" Jana asked softly. Henry's eyes lifted, piercing hers. "It is you." The admission stole her breath. Part fear, part warmth, part something she dared not name. "I don't belong in your world," she whispered. His lips curved, not in denial, but in something like sorrow. "And yet, you're the only part of it that feels real." The silence stretched heavy with everything unsaid. Jana's chest ached, her pulse racing. She wanted to step back to protect herself. Instead, she stood closer, the space between them vanishing like snow under flame. For a suspended moment, the city ceased to exist. The next morning shattered the fragile quiet. News splashed across headlines. Smith Global, in crisis, Hale emerges with leverage. Marcus had made his first public strike, leaking confidential documents to the press. Rumors of corruption spread like wildfire, investors panicking, the board whispering of replacements. Henry read the papers with cold detachment, but Jana saw the tension in his shoulders, the storm in his eyes. "This is only the beginning," he said grimly. Jana clenched her fists. "Then let's be ready." He turned to her, gaze steady. "This war won't be fought with fists and bullets. It will be fought with patience, with control. And I'll need you closer than ever." Her chest tightened at the weight of his words. She nodded, even as her heart whispered the truth she hadn't yet dared to face. Every step deeper into his world pulled her further into him. Henry stood again at the piano that night, his fingers tracing a melody softer than whispers. Jana lingered by the window, the skyline blazing in winter light. Marcus had revealed his face. The storm was no longer distant. It was here, circling, tightening. And in the fragile quiet of the penthouse, amidst the music and the shadows, Henry and Jana stood closer than ever. 2 souls drawn together by danger, tested by fire, and bound by something neither could yet name. The war had begun, and so had something far more dangerous that neither enemies nor empires could control. The city never truly slept yet. Manhattan seemed to hold its breath. The Hudson shimmered under the moonlight, skyscrapers, burning like sentinels, their windows glowing with lives, unaware of the storm about to break. In the penthouse, Jana lay awake, her body tense despite the silence around her. Since Marcus Hale stepped back into Henry's life, the air felt poisoned, heavy with waiting. She could sense it, danger pressing closer with each passing hour, a shadow creeping toward them. Her instincts jolted her upright before sound reached her ears. A faint hum, not from the city, not from the penthouse. Something mechanical. Wrong. She was on her feet in seconds, moving swiftly through the darkened hall toward Henry's room. Henry was awake too, seated at his desk with papers scattered, the weight of empire heavy on his shoulders. He looked up sharply when she burst in. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Even as the words left her mouth, the window's glass beside him shuddered with a sharp crack. A bullet embedded itself in the frame, splintering wood and glass. Henry froze, shock flashing only for a second before he ducked. Jana lunged, pulling him down, her body shielding his. "Stay low!" she hissed, dragging him across the floor. The hum grew louder. A drone hovered outside, sleek and armed, its red sensor glowing like an eye of fire. Jana's heart pounded. Marcus wasn't hiding anymore. She yanked Henry toward the private corridor. "We have to move!" Now Henry followed without protest, his expression grim but steady. The man who faced Wall Street storms now faced real fire, and he trusted her lead. The penthouse shook as another shot shattered, a vase shards raining across the floor. Alarms wailed. They darted through the back exit, descending the service stairs. Jana's pulse roared in her ears, every instinct sharpened to survival. Henry kept pace beside her, silent but unwavering. By the time they reached the garage, the hum of the drone had faded, but she knew it wasn't over. Marcus didn't miss. Tonight was only his opening move. Henry's sleek black car roared to life, tires screeching against the concrete. Jana drove, her hands firm on the wheel, her gaze cutting through the night. Beside her, Henry watched the city lights flicker past, his jaw set. "Marcus is escalating faster than I expected." Jana shot him a sharp look. "This isn't a business strategy, Henry. He just tried to kill you." He met her gaze, something fierce burning in his eyes. "And you saved me." Again. Her chest tightened, but she pushed the thought aside. "Where can we go that he won't find us?" Henry leaned back, his voice steady despite the chaos. "There's a safe house, upstate. Old estate I keep for emergencies." Jana pressed the accelerator. "Then that's where we're going." Hours later, dawn painted the sky in muted shades of gray as the car wound through forested roads. The safe house appeared at last, a stone estate tucked against the trees, its walls silent, its windows dark. Inside, the air was cool, the rooms untouched by time. Heavy drapes hung over tall windows, fireplaces cold but waiting. It felt less like refuge and more like exile, as though the house remembered secrets. Henry dropped his coat across a chair, his composure fraying for the first time. He rubbed his temple, exhaustion catching him. "You should rest," Jana said softly. He looked at her eyes, shadowed. "I can't. Not while he's still out there." "Then let me watch," she insisted. "Breathe for once." For a long moment he studied her, his gaze searching, as though trying to read what even she didn't fully understand. Finally, he nodded, surrendering not to fear, but to trust. That night the storm came again. Jana sensed it, first movement beyond the tree line, the shift of shadows too deliberate to be wind. She moved silently through the darkened hall, her hand brushing the cold steel of a fireplace poker she'd grabbed as a weapon. The glass of the window cracked faintly. A silhouette loomed outside. Before she could react, Henry appeared behind her. "He's here!" Their eyes met, no panic, only certainty. Marcus had found them. The first strike came fast. A flash grenade shattered the stillness, blinding light and sound tearing through the hall. Jana grabbed Henry, pulling him down behind the stone hearth. Her ears rang. Her vision blurred, but she was upright, scanning. Figures entered through the shattered window. Masked men, armed, moving like wolves. Jana's pulse thundered. She stood firm. "Stay behind me." Henry's hand caught hers briefly, a silent vow. "Not this time." We face him together. The fight was brutal. Jana moved like lightning, every instinct honed by survival, every strike fueled by determination. She disarmed one man, slammed another into the wall, her body a shield between danger and Henry. Henry, though untrained in combat, was no passive figure. He used whatever he could, hurling a heavy chair, knocking one intruder off balance, his anger as sharp as any weapon. Through the chaos, Marcus's voice cut clear, smooth, and cruel. "Henry." He appeared at last, stepping into the hall unmasked. His smile was razor-thin. "You can't win. Every empire falls, even yours." Henry straightened, blood on his cheek, eyes burning with defiance. "Then I'll fall fighting." Marcus's gaze slid to Jana. "And she'll fall with you." Something inside Henry snapped. He moved before thought, entirely between Jana and Marcus's line of sight. "No." Henry said, his voice low and deadly. "If you touch her, you don't just fight me. You fight everything I have, everything I am." The standoff lasted only seconds, but it felt eternal. The world narrowed to three hearts beating in the wreckage of an old estate. Jana's breath shook her chest tight. She saw the truth in Henry's eyes. Not strategy, not bravado, but something raw, unguarded. He turned slightly, his voice breaking the storm. "Jana, you're not just my shield. You're why I'm still alive. I can't let him win." Her throat closed, her heart trembling. In the chaos and danger, words surfaced that she had never dared to speak. "And you're the reason I can't walk away." For one suspended breath, the battlefield fell silent. Their confessions hung between them like fragile glass, vulnerable, undeniable, unbreakable. Marcus sneered, his voice dripping with venom. "How touching. Let's see if your love can stop a bullet." Before Marcus could move, Jana acted. She lunged forward, disarming one of his men, spinning the weapon in her hand with fierce precision. The fight erupted again, but something had shifted. She and Henry moved in unison, his defiance, her fire, their bond weaving a rhythm Marcus couldn't break. One by one, the intruders fell, until only Marcus remained, retreating into the shadows, with a promise sharp as steel. "This isn't over," he spat, disappearing into the night. The estate finally fell silent, broken glass glittering like stars on the floor, breathless, bruised hearts racing. Henry and Jana stood in the wreckage, facing each other. For the first time, Henry let the mask drop completely. His hand lifted, brushing gently against her cheek, his touch trembling, yet sure. "You risked everything for me," he whispered. Her eyes shone. "So did you." The space between them dissolved, fragile walls, crumbling under the weight of what had been confessed. Their foreheads touched breaths, mingling, the world outside forgotten. At that moment, there was no billionaire bodyguard or enemy. Only two souls bound by fire, daring to love in the shadow of danger. Beyond the shattered windows, dawn broke, pale light flooding the estate. The war with Marcus Hale had only begun, but something new had been forged inside those walls. Fragile, powerful, unstoppable. Henry and Jana knew the storm ahead would test them, break them, perhaps even destroy them. But they faced it not as a billionaire and protector for the first time. They faced it as something far more dangerous. Together. Morning came, pale and cold. The sky over Manhattan, washed in steel gray. Inside the safe house, silence clung to every stone wall, heavy after the night's violence. Broken glass had been swept aside, wounds hastily bandaged, but the air still echoed Marcus's laughter. Henry stood by the fireplace. His shirt sleeves rolled up, a crimson stain seeping faintly through the bandage on his arm. His face was calm, almost unnervingly, but Jana knew the storm beneath. "You should sit," she murmured, stepping closer. "You're still bleeding." Henry glanced at her, his mouth curving into something between gratitude and defiance. "I've survived worse." "Yes," she replied softly. "But you weren't fighting alone then." The words lingered heavier than the silence. He looked at her, and for a fleeting moment, the billionaire mask slipped. She saw the man beneath, tired, bruised, but alive because she had been there. Before either could speak again, the phone on the table buzzed. The shrill sound shattered the fragile quiet. It was not Marcus on the line this time. It was worse. Henry's chief of communications babbled, his voice sharp with panic. "We have a situation. It's everywhere, news sites, social media, and television." Henry demanded details, his tone clipped. But when the call ended, he didn't speak. He turned the screen of his tablet toward Jana. Her stomach twisted. The headline screamed in bold letters, "Smith Global in Scandal. Secret Ties to Violence Corruption. Who really saved Henry Smith? Mystery Woman or Mastermind?" Dozens of photographs filled the feed. Images from the gala. Grainy shots of Jana beside Henry at the estate. Twisted narratives weaving her into a villain, a bodyguard with a hidden past, a lover manipulating the billionaire, the reason Marcus Hale had returned. Her breath caught. "He's using me." Henry's jaw tightened. "He's using us." By midday, the board of Smith Global had convened an emergency call. Their voices were sharp, accusing, dripping with fear of lost profits and tarnished reputations. "This scandal is unacceptable," one man barked through the speaker. "Shareholders are restless. Investors are pulling out." Another voice, colder, chimed in. "Your association with this woman is reckless, Henry. The optics are disastrous." Jana stood in the corner, spine rigid, listening as if every word were a blade. Henry's reply was ice. "Her name is Jana Taylor, and without her you'd already be searching for my replacement." A hush followed, but it did nothing to ease the weight pressing against Jana's chest. When the call ended, Henry turned to her. "Don't let them get in your head." But doubt had already crept in, sharp and merciless. Was she truly saving him, or destroying him piece by piece? That evening, Marcus appeared not with guns, but with cameras. A broadcast streamed live across every major network. Marcus sat at a polished desk, his gray eyes gleaming with false sincerity. "I speak today," he began, "not as an enemy, but as someone betrayed by Henry Smith's greed. I once believed in his empire, but beneath the surface lies corruption, violence, and manipulation. And at the heart of it, this woman, Jana Taylor. Who is she? A savior, or a shadow hired to keep his secrets?" Images of Jana flashed across the screen. Her face circled in red, her movements twisted into implication. Marcus's voice dripped with poison. "Love makes men weak, and Henry Smith is no exception. Do you trust a man whose empire now bends at a stranger's will?" The broadcast ended, but its echo thundered louder than any gunfire. Jana paced the length of the safe house library, her breath shallow. "He's painting me as your weakness." As if I'm Henry stepped forward, cutting her words short. "He's wrong." "Is he?" Her voice cracked. "Henry, look at me. Your board doubts you. The world doubts you. Every headline says I'm your downfall. You're my strength." His answer was immediate, unwavering. She stared at him, torn between wanting to believe and fearing the cost. "And if believing that costs you everything, your company, your name, your future." He closed the distance, his voice low. "Then it's a price I'd pay again and again." Her heart ached. Every beat was a war between fear and longing. She wanted to lean into his words, into the safety of his certainty. But the world outside was tearing them apart, and she could not silence the question clawing inside her. Was she saving or ruining him? 2 nights later, the betrayal came. Henry's head of security, a man he had trusted for over a decade, resigned suddenly. The letter was curt, but its message was clear. I cannot protect you from yourself. Worse, within hours, sensitive documents from Smith Global leaked again. This time, the source was unmistakable. Someone inside had chosen Marcus over Henry. The walls of trust crumbled. Jana found Henry in the study, staring at the snow-covered woods, his hands braced against the desk. His shoulders carried not just the weight of betrayal, but of doubt, the fear that everyone around him could be bought. When he spoke, his voice was raw. Tell me why you're still here. Jana froze. What? You've seen the headlines, the whispers. Marcus is offering everything to tear us apart. Anyone else would have walked away by now. So why haven't you? Her breath caught. He wasn't accusing her. He was baring himself. Vulnerable. Afraid she would leave. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm firm and steady. Because I don't walk away from the people I protect. From the people I... Her voice faltered, truth trembling on her lips. From the people I care about. His eyes searched hers, and for a heartbeat the storm receded. That night, the safe house was hushed. No attacks, intruders, or messages slipped under doors, only silence. Henry sat at the piano, fingers trailing over the keys, but not playing. Jana lingered nearby, her presence a balm against the world's weight. Marcus thinks love is weakness, Henry murmured, breaking the silence. Jana tilted her head. And you? His gaze lifted, piercing hers. It's the only strength left that he can't steal. Her chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to confess the truth pressing against her heart. But words felt fragile, easily shattered by the chaos outside. Instead, she sat beside him, letting silence become their answer. Beyond the stone walls, the forest stood still, the snow unbroken. But Jana knew the peace would not last. Marcus had changed the battlefield. It was no longer about bullets and fists, but about trust, perception, and the fragile bond between two hearts caught in a war larger than themselves. And though Henry's empire trembled under the weight of lies, and her name was dragged through fire, Jana felt the truth burn brighter than fear. Whatever came next, they would face it, together. For in the shadows of doubt, something more substantial than empire had begun to take root. Something neither Marcus nor the world could undo. The storm Marcus had unleashed did not come all at once. It crept in quietly, like water seeping through cracks in stone, until the foundations themselves began to tremble. For Henry Smith, the cracks appeared first in the voices he trusted most. The boardroom at Smith Global should have been his fortress. The glass walls overlooked the Manhattan skyline. The table stretched like a river of polished oak, and the men and women seated around it had once been the pillars of his empire. But today, their eyes were restless, their whispers sharp. One of them spoke first, an older man Henry had once called a mentor. Henry, the markets are panicking. Investors are pulling out faster than we can count. Marcus Hale has gained sympathy. He looks like the betrayed partner. And you? The man hesitated, eyes flicking to Jana, who stood silently at the back of the room. You look compromised. Another voice followed, harsher. She is the problem. Every headline ties her name to yours. Every scandal points to her shadow. Remove her, and we can salvage what's left. Henry's fist clenched against the table. You will not speak of her as if she were currency to trade. But the whispers grew louder. Betrayal had found its way inside his fortress. Jana felt every gaze on her, like needles against her skin. She wanted to speak to defend herself, but this was Henry's war. Her role was only to endure. Yet when she met Henry's eyes, she saw something she had not expected: fear, not for himself, but for her. That night, it was no longer whispers. A new dossier leaked to the press was detailed, invasive and cruel. It painted Jana not as a savior, but as a con artist. Photographs twisted from context. Financial records manipulated, a false past crafted with precision. The headline was merciless: from bodyguard to mistress. How Jana Taylor controls Henry Smith. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from strangers. Threats, slurs, lies, dressed as truth. She dropped the device onto the table, her hands trembling. This isn't just about you anymore, Henry. He's destroying me too. Henry stood close, his presence fierce, his voice quiet but unyielding. He's trying to make you walk away. Please don't give him what he wants. She swallowed hard. And if staying ruins you, then let it. His answer was instant. But she couldn't ignore the weight of his empire collapsing piece by piece because of her presence. Marcus had not fired a bullet this time. He had fired doubt, and it was striking deeper than any wound. 2 days later, Henry's oldest ally came to him in private. Henry, the man said gently, almost regretfully, we can withstand Marcus's smear campaign. We can weather the market collapse. But we cannot survive the scandal tied to her. Please step away from her. Publicly, if not for yourself, then for the company. Henry's answer was cold steel. No. But Jana heard every word from the hallway where she lingered unseen, and in her chest, something cracked. That night, Henry found her by the window of the safe house, staring out at the pale wash of moonlight over the snow. You heard, he said quietly. She didn't look at him. They're right. No. His denial was fierce. Yes. She turned then, her eyes glistening but steady. Every headline, every whisper, every betrayal, it all comes back to me. I can fight men with guns. I can take on Marcus's shadows, but I can't fight the world when it thinks I'm your weakness. Henry stepped closer, his voice low, urgent. You are not my weakness. You are the reason I'm still standing. Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let those words wrap around her like armor. But the faces of his board, the venom of the headlines, the betrayal of his allies whispered otherwise. The next morning, Marcus called not to Henry, but to her. His voice slithered through the speaker, smooth and poisonous. Jana Taylor, the woman who bleeds for a man who will never choose her over his empire. She bit down her anger. What do you want? To offer you a choice. Marcus purred. Leave him now. Quietly. Publicly. Let the world see him cast aside the woman destroying him. Do that, and I'll stop. I'll end the leaks. I'll spare him the final blow. And if I don't, then I will burn him from the inside out. His name, his fortune, his legacy. All ashes, and you'll watch knowing it was your presence that lit the fire. The line went dead. Her hand trembled as she lowered the phone. For the first time, Marcus had not threatened her body. He had threatened her heart. That evening she avoided Henry's gaze, her silence heavier than words. He noticed instantly. What did he say to you? She shook her head. Nothing. Jana. His tone was sharp, commanding. Her control fractured. He said, I'm the reason you'll lose everything. Henry's eyes darkened, fury sparking. And you believe him? I believe the world already has. Her voice broke. Henry, I can't watch you burn for me. He stepped forward, his hand gripping her arm, his eyes blazing. "Listen to me. I don't care about their whispers. I don't care about their lies. I care about you." Her breath shook. "And if choosing me destroys everything you've built." He didn't hesitate. "Then let it fall, because nothing means anything if you're not beside me." Silence swelled between them, fragile and infinite. Jana's heart warred with her duty, her fear clashing with the longing she could no longer deny. She saw the empire trembling around him, the weight of billions hanging by threads. She saw the man who had stood before Marcus, unflinching, who had bled beside her in the shadows of fire. And she realized the truth. Marcus was wrong. Love was not the weakness. Love was the only weapon Marcus could not wield. Slowly she lifted her hand, placing it against Henry's chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heart beneath. "Then we fight. Together." His breath caught his hand covering hers, and for the first time the storm outside seemed powerless. But in the shadows of Manhattan, Marcus Hale smiled as he watched the footage of their embrace leak onto the internet. He had not needed Jana to leave. He had only needed the world to see how much Henry Smith would sacrifice for her. And with every share, every whisper, every betrayal, the fire grew. The war was far from over, but so was their love. The night New York seemed to pause was the night Marcus struck. From the top of Smith Global's glass tower, the city glittered below like a sea of diamonds, unaware that its brightest empire teetered on the edge of collapse. Inside the boardroom, Henry Smith stood surrounded by betrayal. Screens blazed with headlines, documents flashing proof of embezzlement, corruption, lies all carefully crafted by Marcus Hale. Each file was a blade slicing through the empire Henry had built. Henry, one of the board members, hissed, "Your reign is finished. The vote is unanimous. Tomorrow, Marcus Hale takes your seat." But Henry only smiled faintly, his eyes burning with a defiance that could not be bought. "You're all fools. Marcus doesn't want this company. He wants me broken." And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the boardroom. Panic rippled through the members. And then the sharp echo of gunfire in the distance. Jana Taylor moved instantly. Her body shielded Henry, her instincts screaming, "He's here." Emergency lights flickered on, washing the room in red. Shadows twisted along the walls. And there, standing in the doorway with armed men at his back, Marcus Hale finally revealed himself. "Henry," he drawled, his voice silk over steel, "the empire is already mine. Now I need the world to see you fall." Jana's fists tightened. "You won't touch him." Marcus's gaze slid to her, a smirk curling. "Ah, the bodyguard. Or is it more than that? Tell me, Henry, what's it like to risk billions for a woman no one knew until she crawled from the ashes of a fire?" Henry stepped forward, placing himself entirely before her. His voice was steady, low, unbreakable. "It's worth everything. She's worth everything." The words hung heavy in the red-lit room, raw and undeniable. Marcus's smile vanished. He raised his hand. "End this." Gunfire erupted. Jana pushed Henry behind the conference table as bullets tore through glass and wood. Adrenaline surged in her veins, every muscle burning with focus. She struck like lightning, disarming one man and sending another crashing. Henry fought too, not with skill, but with fury, grabbing a chair, slamming it into an attacker, his body moving with a desperate will to survive. Together they moved as one, chaos raging around them. But Marcus didn't fire. He watched, his smile returning, as if the bloodshed was part of his symphony. At last the gunfire ceased. Bodies littered the boardroom floor, groaning, defeated. Jana stood breathless, bruised, but unbowed. Henry's shirt was torn, and blood was at his temple, but his eyes were fixed only on Marcus. "Enough," Henry growled. "Face yourself." Marcus stepped forward, smooth, unhurried. "Very well. The fight between them was brutal. Henry, fueled by rage, struck with everything he had. But Marcus was trained precise, and every movement was calculated. Blow after blow landed, until Henry staggered back, his strength faltering. Jana cried out, but Marcus seized her by the wrist, yanking her forward. "This is the woman you'd burn for, Henry? Then watch her fall." Her eyes locked on Henry's, fierce and unafraid. "Don't let him win." With a roar, Henry surged forward. The struggle was vicious, bodies crashing against glass, fists shattering wood. And in one final desperate strike, Henry drove Marcus back straight into the floor-to-ceiling window. Glass exploded outward, and Marcus dangled over the glittering abyss of Manhattan. Henry stood above him, chest heaving. Jana rushed to his side. "Do it!" Marcus hissed, his grip slipping. "Show the world who you are." Henry's fists tightened, but then loosened. He looked down, voice steady. "No, I won't become you." He pulled Marcus back, throwing him to the ground. The man was defeated, not by death, but by mercy. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Board members scattered, their courage gone. Jana touched Henry's arm, her voice trembling but certain. "You won." He looked at her, blood and glass glinting on his skin, his empire in ruins around him. "No," he whispered, "we won." And then, as the first light of dawn spilled across the broken boardroom, Henry drew her close. For the first time, there were no masks, no walls, only the truth that had carried them through fire. "I love you, Jana." "Taylor." He breathed the words, fierce and final. Her tears fell, but her smile was radiant. "And I love you, Henry Smith." Their lips met, the world burning away, until only they remained, two souls forged in chaos, bound in something more substantial than empire, more significant than fear. Months later, the world still whispered of the scandal, the betrayal, the night Marcus Hale fell. But Henry Smith no longer cared. His empire was reborn, not as a monument to power, but as a testament to resilience. And beside him, always, was the woman who had saved him, not just from fire, but from himself. Jana Taylor was no longer just a bodyguard. She was his partner, his equal, his love. And together they faced the future, not as a billionaire and a protector, but as two hearts unafraid of the storm. If this story has carried you through every heartbeat, every danger, every whispered confession between Henry and Jana, then don't let it end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part moved you most? Hit the like button if their love through fire inspired you. And follow this channel to stay with us for the next journey of passion, power, and love that defies all odds. Because sometimes the most incredible stories aren't just told, they're felt.